Hey, I'm Natasha, head coach here at All Things Web Agency. I just wanted to do a shout out to all those awesome web agency owners out there. And this video is all about how, as an agency, you can start losing money on projects. If you're anything like me, you have done dozens, if not hundreds, of website projects, and many of them are questionably profitable. If you're anything like my first few years in business, I was definitely felt like I was running more of a nonprofit than a business. Did all this awesome work, but never really had a lot of profit to show for it. And I just want to take a couple minutes in this video to kind of talk you through an idea that I think can help you really turn it around, as it did for me in my business as well. My backstory is I used to work in nonprofit management consulting. I was not, my background was not in tech. I had no experience in websites. To this day, if you had a gun against my head, I could not build a website. I am the founder and the lead project manager of an agency in Vancouver, Canada. And we do really high-end WordPress redesign work for corporate, corporate businesses, law firms, professional services, stuff like that. And I was originally in management consulting, and I had a client who wanted a new website. And so he's like, hey, can you help me find someone? I'm like, oh, for sure. So I just did the normal thing. I went to a freelancer website and I brought in a person who kind of botched it. And then I'm like, okay, brought in someone else and their quote was totally wrong. And I was feeling stupid. And, I couldn't deliver this to the client. The job wasn't done. And then I brought in another guy and his design skills were horrible. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. So purely out of spite and frustration, I started my own agency. I hired a guy and I hired a designer, and my designer, my developer, and we did this website for my client. And anyway, so then after we did that website, he was really happy with it. He referred us to a colleague of his, and we did another one, and we did another one. And, our first year in business, we did about $100,000 in sales, which is pretty good for someone who has no idea what they're doing. And so building on that, I hired a few more people. As we went along, I was up to like 7 people. And so our third year in business, we did about 200,000 in sales at this point. And again, I was feeling great. Our clients were happy. We had no debt. But when I went and did my tax return, I saw that we did 200,000 in sales, but my net income was like $30,000. And I remember thinking, like, I'm working way too hard for $2,500 a month. Like, that was ridiculous. And anyhow, so I started to really investigate, okay, how can I fix this? What do I do? Like, I was a single mom, and I was the sole income earner in my household. So I was doing Airbnb, I was waitressing part-time, I was doing whatever I could do to make some extra money, hoping I could get my business figured out and hoping I could help it become more profitable. And I don't know if you can relate to that at all, but I remember just the panic of, oh my God, like, what if I can't do this? Like, what if I can't make enough money to provide for my family? And what if we're out on the street? And what if, my ex ends up getting full custody because I can't provide? And I would have these panic attacks, desperately trying to figure out how our work was so great as a team, but I couldn't figure out where I was going wrong in terms of making it profitable. And so anyway, so about a year ago, we had a client that was a high end, it was like this very high profile blog, had a lot of really high end readership. The project was interesting, it was challenging, it was totally custom everything, and my team was like, super excited. But as we got into the job, I began to realize that this was a disaster. The client's scope of work was not clear. We were bleeding money. Like I had given him a project price without fully understanding exactly what we were doing. I thought I knew, and I thought I knew enough to kind of go ahead. But then as we're getting into the job, this client turns out to be incredibly high maintenance. He's changing things, and I had no idea how to amend a scope of work or how to ask for more money without it looking tacky. I had no idea how to posture myself as the leader on the team to be like, no, to call the shots. I just kind of let him drag me around as we were bleeding money on this project. And so anyway, so as we're going through it, my team is burning out. Like, this became this huge project and all these add-ons and customs this and all these different things. And I had a guy go on leave during the job because he's like, I can't take it. Like, this is crazy. And then we brought in another guy. at the end of a project, which is completely stressful for that developer, right? So my designer and I and my project manager, we're trying to pull this together. The client had, changed the scope of work. So now we were almost going to miss our deadline. He's mad. He's not happy. I'm like sending him invoices because now this is totally different than what we'd agreed to. But anyhow, so the site turned out beautiful. However, there was like carnage after, like I was afraid I wasn't going to make payroll. Like I had kind of burned through the money paying these guys. I had quoted the job on a project price, but I was paying my team hourly, which I don't know what I was thinking. And then my team was burnt out. Did not handle it well. And after that job, we didn't get a good review from the client. Client was mad. He thought I was super unprofessional. Obviously, that I didn't know how to do my billing and whatever, right? And so I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm better than this. This is ridiculous. And so I'm like, I stopped then and there. And I was like, this is never going to happen again. I loved my team. I hated seeing them burnt out. I lost one of my best guys because he was just couldn't take it. And that was my fault. I had not helped him. I had not supported him. I had not given him a package of tasks that was doable. Like this was totally out of hand, like how it went down. And I was done paying payroll out of pocket, like not being paid for it and not having the courage and the wherewithal to stand up for myself to my client. And so I just made a decision there and there that I'm like, absolutely not. Like any job going forward, I will understand exactly what my client wants me to do so I can give him a very fair, informed quote. I will get to know the client before I take this project. If this client is a pain in the neck, I am going to know in advance. I am going to make sure that the scope of work fits with my team so that they're not stressing and learning new skills on the fly and completely stressed. And I just realized it was an epic failure, this project. And what could have been a huge source of referrals and tons of exposure just tanked. And it was my fault. And so I took a really good hard look at our system and I was like, this is not going to work. Like, this is not scalable. Like, I am going to be out of business in 3 months if I keep this up. So my assistant and I, and one of my colleagues who was a project manager, we got together and we're like, the only way this will never happen again is if we go into a job with a plan, understanding exactly how many pages, the functionality of the site, any custom integrations. We will ask every question, create a completely clear scope of work. So going into the project, completely informed. Everyone knows what's going on. I have an accurate price. The client knows what's expected. We can give them an accurate timeline. And we are going to do measure 3 times, cut once. I just made that decision. And so I felt great. I started the project. Like we started, our next client we brought on, we started planning first. We added a service offer before design. Originally, we would start with design, like a lot of people do. But we added a whole new service component ahead of time where we were going to plan. Step 1 was to plan like an architect, And so as we got into it, we ran into a bunch of other problems. Like my team, I had my web designers do the planning because that's what I was told would be good. A designer should plan the site. She hated it. She didn't want to plan. She just wanted to design. So I had to darn it. I had to hire a project manager to kind of help run this. And then the project manager didn't really like my system. So I had to pay to have the system kind of rewritten for the new planning. Originally, I billed planning on a fixed price. And as you can imagine, as you're planning, the job changes, the scope changes, and the client is organized or disorganized. And so I was still losing money, even though I was, more organized. So learning how to go from project pricing to hourly pricing. A lot of times clients wouldn't go ahead because before I could have closed the job. Now the clients were confused. They're like, why are we planning? That seems like a waste of money. That seems like unnecessary and sort of redundant. Aren't we going to plan it when we do the designing? That kind of thing. And I knew better. I knew that I had done countless jobs that I had lost money or broke even on. Probably I can think of 12 jobs just off the top of my head where I had not planned it properly and we lost money. And I was just done. And so I began to see that there was a certain caliber of client that would never go for that. They would never be into website planning. And so I had to shift my target market to find a clientele that would understand why we're doing that and be happy to invest in that process with us so that they could get a great result. Anyway, so that over the last year that we sort of evolved this system, and from learning how to plan a project, like, 'cause I know website planning, it sounds very boring. Like, it sounds completely like the least sexy topic in the world. And I would never expect that I would actually be training on this. But of all the changes I've made in my business, this website planning, introducing website planning, was the absolute game changer, because for us, it allowed us to bring on bigger and more professional clients. We stopped losing money on jobs. I was able to create better client relationships and get more referrals. I finally had a system, so I was able to stop guessing what to do next. I wasn't hacking it together. There was no surprises anymore. My team was totally relieved because they understood what they were expected to do, and they knew if they had the skills to do it or not in advance. Scope creep completely ended. Budget overruns ended. Missed deadlines ended. Drama, client drama, confusion, mixed messages, communication problems, that was gone. And I was thrilled. I was so excited. And so what I want to share with you is, if you're a web agency owner and you can relate to that, and that you've got a great team, you guys do great work, but it's just not making money, then I just really want to share with you that it's probably systemic. It's probably not you, it's probably not them. It's probably just something in your system, like me, that was really just setting you up to fail, where you had no way to quote the job properly. And it really hurts me when I see people go into a job and they don't know what the client wants and they just guess and they throw a dart, $2,000, $10,000 or whatever. And then you see them hustling, trying to figure this out, and they just feel like they're being jerked around, and they have no position to kind of stand up for themselves because they didn't set the expectation on the front end. And I know what that feels like. Like, I know what that feels like to be panicked about not making payroll, or panicked about not being able to pay my bills, even though we're busy, and feeling like I'm doing everything right, but still is not making money. And so anyhow, so what I want to offer in this page here, you'll see, is I want to give you the option to download our planning guide. This guide has taken countless hours from myself and my team, and it will take you through step by step how to organize everything that you need to know to get all the information from your client on the front end, so that when you go into that project, you can quote it completely accurately. You'll know exactly what's coming. You can make sure you have the right people in place. You can make sure you've got the right bandwidth. Do you have enough time to even take this project on? And learn from me that this guide took a lot of time to put together, and I read tons of books about website planning to kind of make it as comprehensive as possible. And I just really encourage you to download it, start using it, whether your project managers use it or your designers or your account managers use it. And you will notice as well that when you go into a project with a plan, like an architect planning a house before the contractor starts building the house, you will find as well, like, your jobs will be more profitable. Your clients will feel like you're a lot more professional. You will have the scope creep will be gone. Your whole team will be more peaceful. You're not in a frenzy trying to get it done. And so one thing for me that I felt as well, like, other than the business stuff, is I just felt my confidence raise, because I knew I could deliver an amazing experience. So that was a huge plus. I stopped begging clients to go ahead. If they didn't understand what I was doing, I kind of just let them go. I now had a very clear picture on the kind of client that would be good for us. It put our team in a different league, because now we could do our best work. We weren't, again, trying to hustle and trying to make our client do what our client always wanted us to do, but we were able to be more collaborative and show leadership in that we knew what we were doing. We were the authority on how this is going to go. And so one thing, as well, and just going into a job feeling totally prepared. And so I really learned, I was not a bad business person. My system was broken. My system was totally set up to fail. And I just realized as well through this process that if I was having this much struggle, and a lot of my colleagues do, because obviously I know a lot of web agency owners, we were all in the same boat. And I'm like, we need a plan. We need a solution, because we all did fantastic work. But more often than not, our clients left feeling like, they were a little jaded, because something usually would go wrong, with the billing or whatever the case may be. So if that sounds like you, go ahead and enter your best contact information below. I will get that guide over to you right away, and I hope it helps you as much as it helped me. Take care.